Welcome, dear guests, dear speakers. Thank you for being with us today, and welcome to Inloco Talks 2025. My name is Paula, and I'm the Chief of Operations at Inloco in Dubai. Turning back to the topic of our today's conference, we should mention that nomadism is a natural state for street and urban art. And this is the art that lives in constant movement, in constant dialogue with the city. In our 3 years in Dubai, we are still getting to know this environment. It is fast, it is complex, it is really and incredibly inspiring. Each of our events, and we had a lot from 2017, leads us to the idea that public art cannot live without context. It takes its roots in the architecture, in people, in habits, in day-to-day life, in stories and history of the place. Today's conference is a great chance for all of us to look at the place where we are living in, where we are walking in, from point of view of authenticity and closeness. We're going to discuss how art interventions, art objects in the city, transform the urban environment. We're going to meet people who devoted their lives, really, to make that environment better. And actually, I must say that this is the heart of Inloco, and this is our greatest motivation today. And my colleague Xenia will tell later on about our methods. I would like to extend my gratitude to Dubai Culture and in particular to Al Safa Art and Design Library for hosting us for 3 years in a row and for being so kind and supportive. I wish all of us be in dialogue, be in communication, and create the public art in here. And I would like to pass the mic to our beautiful program director, Anna. This is due to her that everything is happening right now, and she will explain a bit.
Thank you, Paula, for such a wonderful welcoming word. I would be short in my talking, and I just would say thank you for all of you for coming here and for making this event this vibrant and beautiful. Today we're going to host 3 talks, each of them going to consider public art in relations to different actors, to different institutions, temporary projects like festivals and biennales, or public art in relation with the larger urban strategy and how it can be implemented there. I hope you're all going to be enjoying this day. I encourage you to ask questions, to provoke, and to be engaged in the conversation we are having now. And let's start this beautiful day with our first talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I prepared a little intro, but I think no one can match this. So thank you and congratulations. I want to say congratulations to Anna. Speaking about public art, if you've been to Nomad, you can judge the cover by its book. And honestly, when we all been to Nomad and we saw her golden container, you knew that what's happening is nice, and we engaged with it. That was a good example of public art, temporary public art. So congratulations on that. And before I start, I want to congratulate Faisal for the 10th anniversary of 421 Art Campus. And that's a big achievement. I am Ahmad Rashid, your moderator for today, first of all, congratulations also on bringing everyone on a Tuesday, on one of the busiest months of the year. I think even art fairs cannot also match that. So congratulations on that. On my right, Gaith Abdulla, the co-founder of Bayt AlMamzar, Pepe, Divi, the founder of, so I don't forget, the founder on Focus Foundation and OL Gallery in Girona and soon to be in the UAE. Faisal Hassan, director at 421 Art Campus. Giuseppe Moscatello, the co-founder of Foundry, our most loved eclectic place in downtown Dubai. Welcome. Before we ask the tough questions and we provoke, we use that word a few times. So it's either we are good to go or not. But according to you, and I'll start from Giuseppe, what is really a public art?
Straightforward. Okay. Hello, everyone. So I was like thinking on how to phrase all of these based on our conversation we had last time, because public art, the way is intended generally is, of course, as we all know, public art installations. But there are so many different layers that I think it's good to explore, and maybe I put up the different slides on the presentation. There are the commissions, there are the public projects for general public. There are probably a few projects that are considered to be temporary, and there are, I intend, in my way, for example, when I work on creating Foundry's identity, was the idea to engage with the audience in a different way. Instead of having the typical white cube, I wanted to make sure that the public is engaged on a different kind of, with a different kind of approach. So, for example, if you walk on the street, for example, you will see a night, light installations. Or, for example, you can see there is a co-working space inside that allows, for example, the audience to interact in a different way. So, yeah, there are different approach to public art, and maybe we can go through the slides later.
We'll go to the next question, and we'll see, based on your experiences and where the spaces that you engage with the public, how do you really see that translated into the spaces? Faisal, what is public art for you?
I think public art is not an object. It's a relationship. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I see public art is not as an object. It's a relationship. Public art should be an invitation to the public, right? To engage, to feel invited, to kind of engage with the work that is being on display. And it really needs to be thinking about the location, the context, and how it can actually enhance and provide a level of relationship with the people that is actually it's there for. So we need to think about it beyond the object and how it's built, how it should really build relationships with the people.
Thank you very much. Pepe, you are not anymore a stranger to the UAE. You've been visiting the UAE more often. Actually, some people thought that you actually live in the UAE, but actually you're based in Girona. What is to you, with a faraway eye, the public arts?
My background is in design and architecture, so that's how I started my professional career. And I always believe what Plato explored around how communities we interact, how we travel, how we make business, how we exchange different cultures and different communities. And I think that for me, like urbanism, personally, because I come from that field, is the most important branch of, because it really has an impact on our daily life. And I think for me, like public art, I really, really appreciate it when it's merged with urbanism.
Thank you very much. Gaith?
So to add to the kind of diverse perspectives we've been seeing on like what is public art, I think an important angle would be also to ask why public art as a lens to the what. If you look historically, examples of art in public space, you see it as monument, you see it as state propaganda with statues and, those classical forms of what we understand as public art. But it's also very much a form of, as Faisal was saying, engagement with the public. But then, that begets the question of like, who are you defining as public and how are you relating to them? Is it from a top-down perspective of, I will show you? Or is it, I am trying to interact with you, I'm trying to engage with you? So all of these whys, I think, are important also to question in terms of how we understand what public art can be. And in the context of the Gulf today, you see, this massive investment in art in general. And more recently, a big part of that has been this understanding that art cannot solely exist in spaces that, for one reason or another, are elitist or are, not seen as the most accessible spaces to the wider segments of society. So therefore, public art is a really important way of engaging and bringing art into these urban contexts.
I really like that everyone believes that public art is all about the public engagement, right? And the perception that you have when you see that temporary or a permanent artwork or a presentation or creative presentation. Giuseppe, I will put some of your slides because if I think many know what Giuseppe does, especially to the industry, and I salute you for that. But you also is the founder of Evolve. Evolve engaged in public arts, and you had experiences since 2014 all the way to Foundry. I want you to share with, because we talked about it, how Foundry, first of all, is not only a gallery, is a public open space, be it for co-work or for meetings or for just people passing by. And how did you, the first question, how did you break that stigma about Foundry? Because at the beginning, people didn't know what Foundry, and I think that was a good challenge, right? And then you actually made sure that it becomes a public engagement space. Plus, should I quit here? Okay.
Okay, oh, good. You start with the Foundry.
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason why I put this slide is that to give context in terms of geographic location on where Foundry is. So when I was approached by the developer a few years ago, the idea was to create a creative art gallery initiative. So the brief was, of course, a bit generic, and what I thought was important is I'm always up for collaboration, always up for complementing instead of creating a sort of another competition. So I thought at that time this type of business model of Foundry was missing. There are so many art institutions in the UAE, so Warehouse 41, Bayt AlMamzar, and the foundations, art galleries. So I think what was missing at that time was something for an art space for temporary pop-up exhibitions, for commercial galleries, and that's what happened. That was the idea. And the geographic, when I say geographic location, I mean that this space is located on the boulevard, so it's fully accessible from the main street. And that's why the fact that you can see the works, for example, when it comes to installations or digital art, for example, you can see far away, that creates a sort of engagement.
Public engagement, more accessibility.
More accessibility. So accessibility is a key word that always is recurrent in my kind of narrative. So I like anything that I do to be understandable, accessible to the wider audience, and create always different type of engagement.
Yes.
So yeah, this is.
Okay. So yes, this is here Foundry.
Yeah, since we are talking about different layers of public art, for example, graffiti art is a part of street art. Now, I'm not going to elaborate into the history of art, but
yes,
it's we work very closely with these the street artist, and there was a collaboration with a big brand, and the idea was to bring his public street art project into an indoor space.
And you also did the contrary in 2014 when you had the public art graffiti on a building.
I'm going backward now. So this is 2023. So we brought a street artist, a graffiti artist, in an indoor space. So next. Okay, back in 2014, this was El Cid, where at the time I was director of Moderator Center. And there was an initiative, Jadaria. Jadaria was established in 2014 to create street art initiatives in Sharjah. And we started the project, we started this initiative with this project by El Cid. So this project was commissioned as a starting point to El Cid, and it's now still there in Bank Street.
And would how the public see it today? They see it as a public art, or they still see it in this realm of vandalism?
At that time was a bit of I wouldn't say taboo, but it was like still okay. It's a graffiti art. It's considered vandalism. What we need to do? It was the first time we were doing that. And I was lucky enough to be, to work under the semi-government organization, so we had the full support. Everything was super clear and transparent. But I think it was an interesting, historic moment when we started this kind of initiative in a public, in a public realm, but at the same time, in an area that has a lot of character. The Bank Street, it's an important area in Sharjah, where after the economic boom in the 70s, that street became like the financial district.
Yes.
And now it's still there. So it's a beautiful, Arab modernism, architectural modernism, and the work works very, very well, I think, there.
Fantastic, thank you. I'll keep the slides, and I want to talk to Faisal. At the moment, you have one of the most exciting, actually, anniversary, I would say, a collective of work with artists and curators. And just to a reminder, because I need to visit the exhibition, the Raise, Ripple, and Residue with Nadine Khalil, Munira Sayer, and exactly. If you can tell us, because there's many elements of that exhibition is actually related to public art. It's almost like a collection of work that represents the center. But also why I said that, because it also represents collaborative work. Giuseppe, you talked about this collaboration between different institutes, and you were part of it. And I think it's a good occasion that you would share this with us.
When we started to think about what can we do in terms of exhibition to mark the 10th anniversary, we obviously didn't want to create something that really just talks about 421, because that's, for us from the very beginning, our ethos is to be part of a community, right? And to be in conversation with that community and build partnerships, etc. So we started to think what could be like a real marker for a 10-year, and we decided to have different conversations, different curators about what they think would be a mark. So we decided to invite Munira Sayer, Nadine Khalil, and Murtada Valley to kind of give a very subjective point of view from their own perspective on what were the kind of seminal moments over the past 10 years that have left a lasting impact to them personally. What were those really moments of change that they saw over the past 10 years in exhibition making and artistic practice? So outside of not really thinking about 421, just thinking about the UAE and the cultural and artistic scene over the past 10 years, and really think about certain markers for them, and they're not looking at kind of seismic major moments like opening of the Louvre Abu Dhabi, thinking about artistic practice, like, Bayt 15, for example, which was a really a very important moment in artistic practice, specifically in Abu Dhabi, the opening of the first kind of artist-led initiative with 3 different artists, and opening that space for other artists to kind of be part of Engage. Obviously, Page 15 is no longer there, but the effect of it, the ripple of it is still there. You know, like those were the moments that, you know, made a major difference on creative practices according to them, basically.
Well, congratulations on that again. And speaking of Bayt and the influence of sometimes smaller project that has an impact echoing for many years to come, and they're still here. Bayt AlMamzar is a great example. And I told you the other day, I feel that Bayt AlMamzar is a public art experimental space just because of where it is. It is in a conservative neighborhood. We all know the neighborhood. It still, from outside, remains a very warm Emirati home. And then inside, there are so many experimentations and provocations and dialogues happening, but happening in a rhythm that is not shocking, yet very engaged and grows. It's almost, that's why I feel that Bayt AlMamzar is a public arts engaging settlement that is so important. But I want to hear your narrative of seeing public art within the, also if we can talk also about the residency that you did on the rooftop and your ideas about how this place is actually made for public engagements.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so also I think that goes to the fact of how we were defining what public art is, and in the context of the Gulf, we need to see it beyond our the typical definitions of, oh, it has to be something in a public space. In the context of the Gulf, you have this negotiation of what is public and what is private. And as you mentioned, the experiment we went on with Bayt AlMamzar, for some of you also who may not know, it's a residential house in a old Emirati neighborhood that has a storied history in Dubai, but remains a residential neighborhood, majority Emirati. In that neighborhood is,
feels home.
Or was,
feels home, is it?
Our grandmother's house, the house in which myself and my brother and many other members of our family grew up. The house was built in 1984. And after they moved out to a new home in Khawanij, my brother and I lobbied our family to be like, hey, listen, guys, what if we turn this house into a public art space? And the reason we wanted to do this is multifaceted. One, because, born of the example of Bayt 15 and Flying House and the many other artist-run spaces that existed in the UAE, we realized that there was a little bit of a shortage when it came to the grassroots side of the artistic ecosystem here. Not a bad thing, it's just the way things are structured. And so we felt like we had an opportunity in which to take this once private domestic space and turn it into a home for artistic and creative practice, specifically focusing on, again, nurturing these kind of experimental ideas and critical approaches to art making and what art can and, again, maybe should look like in the context of the Gulf. The project has existed now for 4 years. We've done, so much more in that time that I think any of us
I can't believe that it's only 4 years. I feel that it was way longer, so.
Yeah, like the project has really mushroomed, and in that time we've done tons of exhibitions and residencies, and more importantly, again, critical thinking about artistic practice. So before I get to the rooftop, which we're looking at as a public space, a very kind of quirky example of one of the things we host is our bathroom art residency, which again was looking at this idea of access in terms of artistic practice and structures of support. And our idea was, okay, what if we offer the most humble thing that you can imagine to offer someone, which is, hey, you can use the bathroom. And the artist who runs the bathroom residency, Ana Escobar, who's the person who conceptualized the bathroom residency, has really taken that idea of support structures and micro support on a horizontal level between artists and has flown. I think an amazing example of the outcomes was that, amazingly, she got shown at a solo show last year at 421 in a brilliant solo exhibition that showcased a lot of the work that she produced in the bathroom. So yeah, just thinking about creative ways to look at space and structures. With that said, so one of the most notable, I think, examples that we currently are working on in terms of this idea of public art and what is public and private space is turning our rooftop of Bayt AlMamzar into a public space.
We'll see the picture because it's really important if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, so it's a rooftop of a residential home still surrounded by Emirati homes. What that means is it presents a big challenge.
With all the satellites that they don't use anymore, right?
With all the old satellite dishes and antennas. And so in this context...
You need to think about privacy, obviously.
Exactly, that's where I'm getting at.
Yeah, you need to think
of like, how do you turn this space into a public space which is still surrounded by all of these private spaces that are not only private, but deeply conservative, deeply, in some ways, maybe not just opposed to, but unfamiliar with the idea of like, oh, all of a sudden there's an art center as my neighbor. Like, what is this? Who are these strange people coming and going in this neighborhood that had its sanctity and privacy? So like, we're very aware of this context, and we're very aware of wanting to work with it as opposed to try and force something that's alien to the context. So this idea of like privacy, of noise, of good neighborliness, of like the Emirati values that underpin how social relations take place. We've been thinking about all of those things in how we're slowly turning this rooftop, which again, as Ahmad mentioned, full of old satellites, which we've recently commissioned actually and turned into artworks, and how this is going to exist now as a public space, which is going to, hopefully invite in audiences of various communities to think and come together, again, to question this idea of like, what is public space? How do we occupy it? And what does it mean to the various communities that engage with it?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And back to Giuseppe with, about neighborhoods, right? You have a good experience with that. And I remember it was 6 years ago, Anna, can we show Giuseppe's slide? Because especially when you talk about collaborations with institutions, but also your experience with the roundabout, I forget the name, I'm very sorry, if you can share the roundabout design,
in
the boat. In Ajman.
Buraka, yes. It's called Buraka. The next one. Next. Oh, spoilers. Okay, next. This one.
There you go. So speaking about neighborhoods and very Emirati and the language that's the importance of public arts and the engagement with the surrounding. And many public arts examples around the world, they failed to engage with the public just because they were in the wrong place in the wrong time, and they failed to have this sentiment. You did this in 2020.
So 2020, I'll just give you a little bit of context because the context for each one of these projects is different. So in this case, there was the government organizations that say we are thinking to repurpose or renovate the main roundabout in the Emirate of Ajman. And at that time, they had the boat, the boat that belonged to, I think, the grandfather of the ruler of Ajman. And in a conversation with the authorities, we came up with the idea of, why don't we reconsider the history? I mean, the structure, and using the narrative of the history of what was the purpose of that boat, what's the history, and from the heritage point of view as well. And then I thought it was important to work with an Emirati artist or designer, and that time we decided to work with Khaled Shafar. And
which is no stranger for public art.
No, yeah. And but also using elements from heritage culture. So, and just also to touch on what you were saying before with Gaith, that we have more than 200 nationalities here. And the language that we speak in a public space is very important, because we have to make sure that we speak a language that is not only understood, but it's also a language that is respectful. And there are so many criteria that sometimes, you have to pay attention. So in this case, for example, it was a commission project. It was a permanent. It was let's say, refurbishment of a roundabout, but at the same time with preserving the history, but at the same time approaching it with the modern and contemporary perspective.
And it's a wonderful collaboration because it's one of the first probably reinvented roundabouts here in the UAE on the purpose of really repurpose it as a public arts. Because if you've been living here in the 80s and 70s all the way to the 90s, all of our roundabouts in the Middle East, especially the GCC, they were offered by private institutes, and we go around them. We never really thought about them. Not all of us think about them as a public art. And the challenges. My next question would be for everyone: the challenges you feel that you face, both from support to create public art or public engagement, be it permanent or temporary creations. And I want to ask Pepe, since you've been here for a while now, how do you see public art represented in the GCC compared to Europe, where public art is, goes back in centuries, but also it has different eras and ages, like from classic to modern to sometimes very politic. Especially in Spain, you have many public arts that they were commissioned by the public, for the public. How do you see that compared to here?
Spain is a very specific country because the market is inexistent. It's very small compared to the rest of the European Union, and for many years it has been institutionalized, the art world. And as you were saying, I think growing up, I always felt very inspired by artists such Picasso and Miro, who during the Civil War, they exiled and they returned to Spain when democracy was restored in the late 70s, and they donated all these public pieces. So I always felt very inspired by the idea that public art shouldn't not only be commissioned, but it should also stem from an emotional point of view. In this case, these artists really felt the need to donate these pieces because of something that deeply impacted Spain's national identity and the war that lasted for several decades. But I think that many countries inspire me today because their engagement to public art is really impactful. And Spain, unfortunately, for many years, for the past couple of decades, hasn't focused their national budget from the culture department into promoting these public installations. Hopefully, they follow other countries, for example, the UAE, that they're really supporting. Oh, I see that. Yeah.
Do you want to share some anecdotes about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can go back to the garden. There's a picture of a garden. This one. So this is a project that.
If I didn't know, I would think this is the back. This is an installation at Bayt AlMamzar. No? Or Sharjah Foundation, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's two trips that really changed my life. The first one was a trip that I took to Colombia when I was in my early 20s, where I started researching on post-colonial topics. And the second one, for many years, my partner and I had difficulties in migration difficulties. I was living in the UK and the US for a decade, and I finally decided to move with my partner to Barbados in the Caribbean. And Barbados is a very special place because it was the crossroads between, in the slave trade between Ghana and the US. And because they became independent 50 years ago, they're creating their national identity. They're doing research to create this national identity that was completely erased until 50 years ago. And I started researching about post-colonial artists in the island, and I came across Annalie Davis, who's the artist that you see in the picture. And Annalie had been working for 30 years. Her work stemmed from this period of the radical women of Latin America who were very important in the guerrilla period in Colombia and Cuba, like Ana Mendieta and Maria Evelia Marmolejo. And I met her, we acquired some pieces, and I proposed her to manage her studio. And because my background is in production design and architecture, I always helped artists that I work with develop bigger installations. That is my focus, and it's really the base of my work, even in the gallery. Because both the foundation and the gallery, I open to continue working with Annalie, because we developed this very motherly son, very special relationship. But yeah, this project came, we had the visit of Hur Al-Qasimi in Barbados, where she came to the research at the Annalie's Library, which is a library of more than 4,000 books on post-colonial topics. And she stayed for around a month, and that's when she proposed us to develop this pavilion. Annalie, it was her first huge installation, and it's really the installation that changed her career. But this is a garden that it took us around a year and a half to grow, because we work with a botanist from the Netherlands, and he collected 150 seeds from all around the world of plants that were introduced for colonial economic reasons in certain regions of the world. And I think it was a very special installation, because plants, I guess, against the commercial aspect of the market, they need time to grow. You cannot plant a seed and expect in a month to have a plant.
That's a very nice word, the seed, right? We all try to plant a seed, and that's a beautiful word. I love the word seed.
So this took several trips. We emptied the pavilion, soil was brought, seeds were planted, and this is a result. This installation was meant to become permanent at a certain degree, but unfortunately last year there was a flood and it got destroyed.
That was the flood we had here 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen every day, but...
You know, and finally the only plant standing, I have a picture that I can show you later, is the sugarcane, which
Amazing.
is...
yeah, that's nice.
That sugarcane that...
And speaking of planting a seed and the challenges, but the opportunities, because you had this opportunity really abroad before you come and you launch something here in the UAE. We had a chat, Giuseppe. I would like to ask a question for everyone. At the moment, speaking of public art, we have literally a public art every 5 months in the region, in the UAE, in every city. It's important, but we always say, oh, that's amazing, things are happening and people are doing amazing things, and that's fantastic, right? But there are challenges, and there are some challenges that the public cannot really perceive or imagine happening, okay? And we always talk about public engagement, and we want the public to engage, and with that comes a big, burden. In your opinion, how many, in your opinion, all of you gentlemen, how many public art biennales and events are enough, or it's important? Let's go, why not? The more, the better. And how it can really impact the artists and the industry positively, hopefully. And And what is your role in that?
Question for me?
Yes, for everyone. But you have maybe, you'll start, Faisal?
Look, I don't think, I mean, yes, in the past couple of years, you're seeing more, engagement around the idea of public art, but this has always been there. It's now a little bit more structured, I would say, and there is more, like strategies being put in place to make sure that what gets presented really kind of echoes what we've been talking about: engagement, bringing the public as a key stakeholder in the conversation. Whether that's happening successfully or not, that's a different story, but at least the intention is there. I do think that also the way we define public art, like whenever you're thinking about a public art, people's mind always go to a statue, right, a sculpture, and that's level of like permanence to the object, and that's not necessarily the case. That should not be the case. Sometimes it can be something as temporary as a one day. It can be a performance. It can be a conversation that happens in a specific location. That is, like we need to widen the perspective of how do we define what is public art, and also what it's supposed to do. As I said in the beginning, it should be, it's a relationship, right? It's a relationship between the artist, the space, and the people. And that relationship, everyone should be like an equal stakeholder in that conversation, right?
In 10 years, you have seen definitely, because you're working at a like Foundry or Space 421, you engage with the public, right? Have you seen a big change, and that could be positive or less as fast as you wish? Because also you are educational, you count a lot on your education qualities, and one of the pillars of 421 Art Campus is education. Not only that, have you seen this change?
Massive. Look, 421 sits at I think at a weird intersection between a grassroots initiative and an institution. We don't necessarily, like some of the things we do are very, very institutional, but other things that we do feel very, very grassroots. We really focus on the act of listening first in everything that we do. So all our programs, all our initiatives are results of conversations with artists, with curators, with partners, etc. Like, what are you thinking about? We're thinking about this. Is there a way for us to think together and create something? Our strategy came a couple of years later than when we opened. So we opened with the idea of just listening to what the community wants. So have I seen a drastic change? Definitely, 100%. I think there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of, people are starting to become more critical of what they see, which is good, which is what we need. There is a level of engagement, strong engagement from the public in what we do. But also, we have decided to take a different approach to how we actually curate shows. How do we put programs? We try to kind of make sure that our space is open and inviting, and it does not just say that, but it feels like inviting. That. Yeah. Is the idea is that you can always say, our doors are open. But if I come in as the public into your space,
how do I feel?
And I don't feel that I can engage with what you're putting up, or I cannot understand the wall text that you put up, or that the work that you're putting up feels really foreign and distant to the work to what what's happening today, then it's not really open and inviting, right? You can call it that as much as you want, but unless you actually take the steps towards that, language is very important, right? Everything that we do is in both Arabic and English, and whenever we're working with artists from other languages, we try to also provide that as much as we can, whether, because we're in a multilingual society, right? We definitely agree. There's 200 people here, 200 different nationalities here. We should always be trying to provide information as much as possible in different languages. English, yes, is a predominant language, but we're still in an Arab country. Arabic should always come first.
Absolutely.
Everything that we do
encourage that actually
in
at 421.
I have something to build on, actually.
Can I say just one thing to complete what he was saying? If you notice the last exhibition they had in Warehouse 421, the wall text has some sort of notes where explain, the abstract of the, curators into simple words for anybody, so anybody can understand that.
We try to meet people where they're at, right? There's a relationship that you need to build between a curator or an artist and the public, right? And our role as an organization is to be the middleman, somewhere in between. We need to make sure that the artist and the curator, have that creative freedom to build the language and the text around what they're thinking about, but also to make sure that it's not too complicated, right? Complex doesn't mean complicated.
Of course.
And to try to kind of break down very complex ideas, big terminology, etc. And we thought of like somewhere in between where the artist or the curator can still have that wall text. But one of the final levels of approval for the wall text is our security guards. They go through the text, because they're the custodians. They're the first people to actually be looking after that exhibition. So we want to make sure that they're actually fully invested in what we do and aware. So we go through the exhibition with them, the artworks and everything, and we give them the wall text. They read it, they think about it. We come back 2 days later. They've highlighted words that were very difficult for them or they didn't understand. This paragraph was a little bit difficult. We rewrite it. We rethink it, and we present. So they're the final level of approval before the wall text get printed.
Thank you very much.
Jumping on, following what you said, with the gallery that opened 1 year ago, we just participated at Abu Dhabi Art, and we presented an artist from post-war Spain, Enrique, who is a disciple of Salvador Dali, and it's the same generation as Tapies. And very funnily that you say that, after 9/11, he started honoring the heritage that we have in Spain, which is 1,000 years of an Arab empire, of the Arab Empire. And we presented all his works, which is a series of called The Labyrinth of Islam, which is a series that is inspired on Arabic calligraphy, and abstract Arabic calligraphy, and how important language is a tool and vehicle of communication between religions and war zones and politics. And it's very interesting because my family is from the south of Spain, is from Cordoba originally, even if I grew up in the north, but it's something that because of growing in the middle of both places, it always really impacted me, the heritage of the Arabic period. And it's very interesting how in Spain, still to this day, they don't understand the importance of these 900 years of history that we have in Spain. And I've been working with him for 10 years.
And actually, if you go to Cordoba, it's plenty of public art that's related to religion. I want to jump back to our subject, which is public arts. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but because also we're running out of time, a lot of time. I mean, it's an incredible. And Gaith, sorry to interrupt, but I really want to.
Thanks. Interesting points. So I just kind of wanted to build on what Faisal was saying in the example of 421, which is this idea of access and constantly existing within the space of experimentation and like trial and error. There are so many examples of, again, public art and engagement throughout history that tell us things should happen in a certain way, right? But context plays an important role. So as we were talking about earlier, if we look at street art, for example, history has told us that this is a form of anarchy, this is anti-institutional, etc. Yet when it came to the Gulf, our first contemporary examples, so in the past 10, 15 years, of interest in public art as institutions and governments were, oh, let's commission graffiti everywhere.
Make it glamorous.
Yeah, which was so counterintuitive and fascinating, but that's our, in these past 15 years, the first foray into public art was government commissions of street artists to produce these massive murals, El Cid and Sharjah and the many others.
And most of public arts at the moment, which is...
Yeah, so and today how it's, in the past 2-3 years, government policy mandating, thinking about public art and how it can engage. But then going back to 421, what I wanted to bring in there is as a space, it is one of the most, I think, evolving in the sense that when you go to an exhibition, your wall texts are multifaceted. You have Braille, you have wall text that exists on a lower eye level because it's catering towards children, which again are fascinating examples of thinking about access. And this going back to this idea of what is right and wrong. It's not like we have a checklist of prescriptive examples of this is how you produce access and this is how you engage with communities. No, it's trial and error. And what Faisal was saying of this active listening. So the fact that it's just fascinating that we have institutional structures here that are engaging in processes that you would expect more from a bottom-up approach.
And if it was in your hand, how do you make that difference? And how can you remain authentic? How can Bayt AlMamzar continue to be Bayt AlMamzar as it's today? Public engagement place, a place where dialogue, but also in a very comfortable, almost like at home.
Okay, that's kind of tough. I don't know if I have an answer to that. Again, but yeah, it's, I think, important to go back to context. We're in a moment where a lot of things are happening top down. So, you need to keep up with the fact that, again, our kind of typical understanding of, for example, government and institutional structures is they're bureaucratic and they're slow to change. Therefore, so my answer in maybe another place in the world would be, we need to keep doing and we need to keep, pushing this agenda of whatever it is on, on that grassroots level. But in the context of the Gulf, we have governments that are insanely agile. And, by this time next year, you might have government policies that immediately solve, 9 out of 10 of the problems that exist on the grassroots, which you wouldn't find somewhere else.
Which is the main problem that you face?
It's
just one.
So, in affordability, I think access to spaces, the ability to collectivize as individual artistic practices, those are kind of some of the key challenges. But the reason I mention this is because the government has already listened and they are already showing signs that things are changing in that regard, right? So this idea of maintaining agility and continuing to question what accessibility means, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Giuseppe?
It's interesting, you mentioned bottom-up and top-to-bottom, and I think it's interesting to look also at this perspective, and initiative like yours, for example, or Bayt 15 when they started, it's important because independent art initiatives are really grassroots and, speaking from the heart without, being driven by commission projects or by the government organizations. So I think it's important. And when we speak about the public and the private, we were discussing last time. So I think when you have this opportunity of having a project, like presenting an exhibition or a project in a private context, or let's say semi-private context, I think you have much less pressure than exhibiting something in a public space. And I'm always speaking with the highest respect of the culture and everything, but I think when you are in that semi-private context, as a curator, for example, as a founder, you have less pressure, and then you can work more relaxed and say, okay, maybe this content is okay. If it's not okay, it's okay. I have the chance to remove it anytime, you know. While when you have to work in a public space, you know, like for example, our space with Foundry or Warehouse 41, you have to make sure that everything is super, perfect and, you know, sharp.
And do you think we will reach a point, one of the last questions I want to ask, do you think we will reach a point where you would feel, Faisal, Pepe, and yourself, I hope you'll always have more freedom, which is right? But Giuseppe, Faisal, and Pepe, one of the last questions I want to ask is, do you think more freedom will give you more space to accommodate and create and build on what you already been building? And if that's the case, what is it really that's missing? What is it? Time? Is it?
I don't think there is anything missing. I think it's always a matter of time. I think making sure that who's in charge of any place or institution has enough experience and enough knowledge to understand what is respectful, what is disrespectful, what is dangerous, what is not. And because sometimes it's very easy to find, that little thing that you could say, okay, from now on, no longer this subject is allowed in public space. So it takes very little to stop and put this kind of regulation. So I think we as cultural translators, let's call ourselves, we have to make sure that we understand those kind of challenges and we address it in the right context.
Are we going in the right direction here in the region?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Faisal?
I think to your first question, are we going to the right direction? Yes, I think we are definitely going to the right direction. But there's always ways to pivot, right? We need to think about the work that we do is constant, right? There's no end to it. There's no end. There's no mountain peak that you need to get to. That doesn't exist, right? Because what is that mountain peak, and where does it exist elsewhere that you're trying to get to? We need to keep. We need to make sure that everything that we do is contextual to the locality that we're in, to its history, to its culture, to the way it's evolving, right? To how young it is, and just continue to work toward making things better. And that's it. When we're thinking about direction and we're thinking about, where we're going, there's always that kind of comparison that you're trying to make with anywhere else, whether it's West or East or Africa
thankfully, interestingly, at the moment we're looking even close by, right?
Yeah,
we don't have to look back further.
It's not helpful to anyone because the context is completely different from one place to another. You need to just focus on where you are, where you're here today, and what is happening here today, and that is where your focus should be. Yes, you take inspiration and you look. Or lessons learned, but the contexts are completely different from one another, and it's just about the continuous growth of the work that we do. And as you were saying, exactly, our role here as organizations, whether grassroots or institutions or
cultural translators,
is to try to kind of constantly be, challenging the status quo. Pushing the envelope, bringing subjects that are current and people are interested in talking to, and to kind of just continuously build those engagements with the public. That's it.
Thank you very much. Pepe.
So I'm the new one in the region, and actually, by the way, I started learning Arabic a couple of months ago. So I hope
should I embarrass you and ask you in Arabic, or just
No, not yet. No. But I do agree. Context is very important, and I always focus on context locally and regionally where I am, but always trying to create this conversation with with a more global perspective and picture. And in my case, because I haven't, even though I've been here for a while, coming and going, working, and whatsoever, I'll try to honor this contextual, yeah.
Thank you very much, Pepe. And thank you for learning Arabic, because next time we'll be in Arabic. Gaith?
You'll probably have better Arabic than I will. Just reflecting on that, I think, again, as Pepe, Faisal, and Giuseppe were saying, it's there's no immediate right answer. It's maybe just focusing on, what is most pressing at this moment in time. With that said, I think as grassroots or established institutions or as artistic practitioners, we constantly need to maintain the self-awareness and criticality towards the structures around us. It's important not to get complacent, and it's important not to over-glorify. I think maybe that's, to say it subtly, if we were to say what our issues are in this region and in this context, we maybe tend to be a little bit too self-congratulatory, too easy to praise our achievements and developments, and that, is a great thing. It's great to be positive, but at the same time, it does risk blunting the sharpness of our critical eye.
Absolutely.
So I think that's, again, as things change so fast, and as the context as well means different things to different people, because again, this is an important point to consider when we are talking about public. It's not one public, and it is a constantly changing public. As we mentioned, 200 nationalities, different cultural contexts and
only
influences.
in Dubai, 4.5 million people now live in this city. It's really one of the most populated city in Asia.
And within the next 10 years, it'll become a 10 million population. That, these are huge changes. So I think,
Thank you very much. Before we end this, I would like now to go to the public if you have any questions, and hopefully we've provoked, again, I'll use this word, some interest in you, and then you have the right questions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rafat. I'm a journalist from Baena newspaper. Thanks a lot for this wonderful and useful talk. It's really comprehensive and useful. Sorry, I wanted to ask my question in Arabic because there is some details is specialized. I think my friend Ahmad will help to explain for you.
And also Pepe, by the way. He will try.
الفن بالمجمل هناك رسالة، حتما هناك رسالة. هناك رسالة للفن. الفن في الأماكن العامة تحديداً يحمل رسالة خطيرة، وهو منذ أمد تحت سيطرة الحكومات. بدأ منذ إيطاليا إلى الاتحاد السوفيتي إلى الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، يوجه وهناك رسالة، يحمل رسالة. لكن في الوضع الحالي الآن هناك آراء تتهم الفن في الأماكن العامة أنه أغرق في الرمزية وذهب في اتجاه تربية الناس للنزعة الاستهلاكية. هل من رسالة حقيقية ترتقي بالذائقة العامة للفن الآن؟ وماذا عن تجربة من هم لهم جاليريات في الدول الأجنبية مثل مستر جوزيف؟ ما بين مقارنتهم الفن ومستواه في الدول الغربية وهنا، ما طبيعة الاختلاف ذائقة الناس؟ الشق الثاني من السؤال، الإمارات كما أكد الجميع تحتوي مجموعة من الثقافات، وهناك بانوراما جميلة تنتج مجموعة من الأعمال الجميلة خاصة الفن في الأماكن العامة. هل يا ترى سنشهد ولادة حركة فنية مهمة ومختلفة مغايرة تشكل تناغماً ثقافياً بين الثقافات ولقاء وحوار وتناغم ثقافي وتسامح بلغة الفن بسبب الإمارات؟
Thank you very much. That's two beautiful questions that I will test my capacity in translation, but really it's amazing because it was a beautiful classic Arabic, really. Congratulations on that, really. Thank you very much. And he's always, Baena newspaper always supported the creative community, so thank you for that. The first question was, throughout history, the public arts installations and presentations, they were very government-led from the Soviet Union, from Italy, and you said something else. And then and then it came all the way to this region. The first question was, how do you, and then also the first presentations of public arts here in the region was also by governments, and now we see it's more into a commercial side that creates a different dialogue. All right, how do you think this is happening? Is it becoming too commercial, and if that's good or not? And that's the first question. The second question: do you think, especially for from our panelists who are not from the region or not from the UAE, do you think we are witnessing a new art movement related solely to the public art? I think that was a good. What do you think, Faisal?
I think it was okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you.
I can venture an answer.
Yes, please. Absolutely. Thank you.
For me personally, I don't care who funds that art, whether it's government, private gallery, an investor, as long as the art actually is contextual, as long as it actually serves a purpose, as long as it stops people, makes them slow down, visit, engage, come back again, talk about it, post about it, engage, have a conversation about it. It doesn't really matter who is actually funding that work. At the end of the day, if it's actually there to serve the public, and if it's actually in conversation with the public, then the funding issue just becomes secondary. If it's there to fund to serve other agendas, then that's a different story. But if it's actually truly trying to create a relationship with the public, then that's what it I would say. It doesn't actually matter. Is there, sorry, I forgot the second part.
The second question, do you think, are we witnessing at the moment with all these abundance of events related to public arts, we are witnessing a new line of creatives and artists that they work probably more or majorly for public art? Is it a new thing that we'll witness growing within the community?
Yeah, maybe I can take this. Because I wanted to, two brilliant questions, by the way, for those who don't understand Arabic, like they were beautifully put, is to bring in the point of capitalism in all of this. And again, public space and agendas, and which is to say that although, for most of this panel, we've been talking about the importance of context and being context specific. But one of the things that I think we can generalize from the Gulf context is hyper-capitalism, and how that is, again, a feature that we will see across the world. More specifically, the disenfranchisement of so many of us within these structures.
We should get a message from that.
Yeah. So what I mean by this is...
You didn't say anything wrong. I feel it is, but it's not.
Yeah, is what happens when we exist in these capitalist structures is we become hyper-individualistic. We become so much of a number. And our economic condition within these structures, we become hyper-aware of. So then again, going back to what Faisal was saying, when you are creating public art, it doesn't matter how it's funded or by who, or as long as it's engaging with these publics. So it had me thinking of like, maybe, what is the most pervasive form of public art we see in the Gulf today, specifically the UAE? Designs for real estate developments, right? These utopian visions of like, oh, this is the future that you can buy yourself into. And what that means, and what's amazing is you see some artistic practices critically engaging with that, whether it's Vikram Devicha or Shazia Salam or various others, looking at what art exists around us that, maybe we aren't defining as art. What are these visual influences that exist in these contexts?
Well, if you are outside Foundry, you would see digital art inside, and then you turn and you see Burj Khalifa. So I think that's...
and going back to, like, for example, Foundry, one of the things people criticize about setting up an art space in downtown Dubai is, oh, it's such a, superficial place, and it's full of just tourists and whatever. But when you think about it, it is perhaps the most democratic context that you can think of for an art space in the UAE, because I kid you not, if we were to like go out and ask, virtually anyone who's just a member of society, what's a Sarkal Avenue, they'd have no idea.
Yeah.
Yet Foundry and downtown would be somewhere that they're intimately familiar with. And yet in our art circles, we imagine a Sarkal as this, rooted space, and it's existed and it's familiar. But honestly, for most of the general public, it's out of their radar. So spaces like Foundry and this idea of engaging with art on the sidewalk in the middle of downtown, that's, as democratic as it can get.
And since you mentioned hypercapitalism, I wanted to come back to your question. Thank you, by the way. So what I think is trending now, it's commissions, public art commissions by big brands. So big brands now, luxury brands, they need this sort of, not now recently, it's been now a while, more than 10, 15 years, but they need this sort of validation from the art world to kind of like evolve into something more engaging, to engage with a new audience. Because the luxury, as far as I understood, is in crisis. So, the art...
is saving the day.
Sorry?
Saving the day somehow.
Yeah. And also another answer, to answer also the question is engagement with interactive and full immersive experience, the so-called experiential projects. This is trending now. So now some artists, they are doing meaningfully in a nice way. Some other artists, they are doing less. But this is what I see now in the trend.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
So going back to the Spanish context, I was explaining before that in Spain, the commercial aspect of the art is almost non-existent, and that has been institutionalized for many years. And when it comes to public art, with the economic boom of the 90s until the crisis in 2008, the government invested a lot in creating public sculptures, and that's the reason why, since the crisis in 2008, they kind of stopped investing in, because I think Spain is oversaturated of public art. There is a sculpture on any single roundabout in the whole country. And for me, that's, I guess, one of the reasons why our concept is about decentralizing, and because oversaturation for me, I don't think it's something sustainable on the longer run.
Correct. Thank you very much. Do you have another question? We started 10 minutes late. So we have 5 minutes. We do? Where is Anna? Oh, 2 questions.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Maria, and I'm part of 100 Collectors. We're a club that is trying to connect collectors from all around the world with art. And I was wondering if you could dive deeper into the challenges behind creating this ecosystem and collaboration between private, public sector, more specifically on the role of us as civil society and as a public. What can we do, and what is your expectation on us in to be able to contribute to this movement and to these initiatives?
That's a very big question, huh? And then...
As a start, engage and critique.
Nice.
As a start, a bit of engagement and critique. I think critique is something very, very important for artistic practice, for institutional growth in general as well. And I think it's quite missing today, contextually here, where a society built on being nice and being polite. And I think generally critique is missing because of that, and I think we need to push for more of that as a start. If you talk about civil society in general and the role, visit more and critique and have an opinion about the work that you see. You like it, why? If you don't like it, why?
Great answer, thank you. Anyone? Would you like?
Yeah, no, just to stress what Faisal was saying is something, that we, I think, still struggle with in the contemporary period. If we are to be defining things in terms of moments, we're still missing critique. That's still a big one, even though there's been a lot of grassroots efforts of like artist collectives to come together and like form critique circles, or speaking of critique, better art criticism in our publications. We're missing that. Yeah. Our reviews, kind of suck. It's just they take the press release and they publish it. No, we want, art criticism. That's another thing we're missing. But unfortunately, that's a structural thing, because the reason we're missing it is because we aren't, the structures that exist don't help facilitate people to take that on as a profession, as a full-time writer. And that's because of the lack of, good publications and investing. But going back to civil society and maybe the role of the private sector, that I think would be interesting to see in, I guess, the coming era or the coming 10 years, is more investment from the private sector, whether it's micro-investing and increasing collecting, or motivating the private sector to take on more of a role in patronage. An example that I want to point to is the recent announcement of the Dubai Museum of Contemporary Art or something.
Which is a great example for private.
Exactly, which is funded and going to be operated by Al Fataim, which is one of Dubai's top business families. And so I think it'll be great in the next 10 years to see much more of this. An example which we've seen is a great example, which has had already in the few years it's existed, a huge impact has been Ishara Foundation.
Of course.
Which, things like that.
Thank you very much. Anna, do we have another few minutes for one question? One question.
Hi there. Thank you so much for today. It's been an interesting discussion to be a part of in the audience. My question is for everyone, including Ahmed. I'm wondering, outside of your own practice and collaborations, what have you found to be the most memorable and successful artworks that have resonated with you, that you have come across?
Okay, well, honestly, one of the slides, but we didn't have time, which is when there is no time, that's mean it was an exciting time, right? A short time. The public installation in near Al Hudayba, not very far from here, which was a collaboration between Asma Bilhamar, Afra Dhahiri, Mohammed Ibrahim, and Khalid al-Banna, and Sheikh al-Mazrou. I think around the world there is thousands, but I think this one, I really love this. Oh, there you go. Thank you very much. The Union of the Artists. It's wonderful because really many artists that I respect, first of all, it shows when if you read the press release or the title, but it's the challenges of all of us, coexistence, but also dialogue, contradiction, fights that we have, and it has so many little details. For example, there is the sadu, the tali, and there's female, masculine, femininity. There's a lot of things in this place. And one of the questions I couldn't ask today was, around the world we were able to go way much closer around public arts. Unfortunately, here we see it from far because we're a society that we were always in our car, and that's an unfortunate, but for another discussion, hopefully. But yes, this marked me a lot. I love it. And if you haven't, guys, seen it, there's a garden, and now in winter, it's very nice to see it. Thank you for the question.
Oh, I have an interesting fun fact about this artwork. So that was a really hard question.
It's a good question.
A great question, but picking one is super hard. So about the Union of the Artists, and I think an interesting point about agency is how this artwork was created. So this was the result of one of the first open calls by Dubai Culture for public art in this contemporary context. It was two years ago. They selected a short list of artists who had applied, and one of the artists was meant to take this commission and produce a public artwork. What the shortlisted artists did instead was they came together. It was during Art Dubai when they announced it. They went and had coffee afterwards, and they were like, hey, listen, guys, what if we're like, hey, you can't pick one of us. We want to collectivize and produce a public artwork together.
I didn't know about this, so that's fantastic.
It was in the press release, but kind of as a sideline. But that, to me, was one of the most amazing things about this public artwork is the agency of the artist. And that's why they called it the Union of the Artists, is because they had come together and were like, we want to work together and produce this. So, yeah.
I love that. And with that, I want, unfortunately, we don't have more time, but thank you very much. It was an honor to be moderating this, humbly moderating this. Thank you, everyone, who joined us. Thank you for Inloco for all your efforts and the gentlemen at the technical. And this is just the beginning of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear speakers. This discussion was very vibrant and I would say even hot, if I may. And a very small announcement. In our schedule, we are having a break now. You are very welcome to join us to the informal networking session and treat yourself with some coffee and delicious pastries over there in a hall. We'll start with the next discussion at 3 p.m.